Welcome everyone, introducing you to my 1949 AC 2 litre. My late father bought it in 1962 for the princely sum of £180. It brought me home from the maternity hospital when I was 2 days old, and it was our family car up until 1974. The spare shortage meant it got laid up. Dad announced that he was keeping it for me, so in the 1980s I did a partial restoration, mainly to get it on the road so I could fulfil my childhood dream of driving it. By 1990 it got laid up again after blowing its head gasket. By that time I had formulated a cunning master plan to restore its wood frame within the confines of my single garage. I think I'm the first in the world to peel off the alloy body shell from one of these saloons. I suspended it in the garage above the rest of the car. The next problem was that the factory drawings were destroyed in a fire years ago, which has been a stumbling block for restoring this model of car. So I embarked upon a project to make my own set of drawings. This was in the 1990s, before we had high-tech devices to scan parts. The Resto got sidelined for several years until an invasion of woodworm took hold. After tackling that slight inconvenience, I resumed the project in 2009. It took 2,500 hours across 6 years to repair the wood frame. The main reason for rotting was the use of animal glue, which has very little water resistance. The rot begins in the most inaccessible places. The frame has over 300 components, and I renewed about 55 of them, making everything myself, plus about 110 repairs. This work was done inside the single garage to make sure that the car was not twisted. Refitting the Duralium in body shell was another challenging task, involving annealing the edges ready for hammering over and pinning. Much to my surprise, the shell, doors and windows all fitted. The driver's door had had a severe attack of those pesky woodworm, the little rascals. The rest of the rebuild was more conventional. The chassis and other parts that were painted black were actually coated in bitumen originally. I've repainted with epoxy mastic, which is very tough and also resists brake fluid. I top coated it with a 2-part polyurethane formulated for steel structures. Then there were a few trifling jobs such as front and rear axle overhauls and Moss gearbox rebuild. The hydromechanical brakes were a slight challenge due to the lack of information on this system. Although it's a Girling system, AC made their own balance mechanism for the rear brakes. The only task I've not done myself so far was resetting the rear leaf springs, and the only task that I didn't do single-handed was lifting the body shell. Over winter I've been working on the interior trim. I added these bonnet props to prevent the hinge bracket from breaking. You can see the mechanical linkage for the accelerator, also the SU fuel pump. Those bonnet props were attached without drilling any holes in original material, as I don't like to vandalise original parts. That radiator needs to be reconditioned. There's the cast iron cylinder head with its aluminium cover, and the alloy engine block with the timing chain and wheel poking up at the rear. The whole engine is reputed to weigh only 350 pounds. That bumper is made from spring steel, making it hard to polish for rechroming. There's the beam axle. The AC has been derided by writers for many years for retaining a beam front axle, but I suspect those critics had never driven these cars. They have very sharp handling and far better road holding than you might expect. A little known fact is that this AC's chassis was a redesign of a standard chassis done by an SS Jaguar engineer before the war. He boxed selective areas of the frame and introduced slipper-type shackles for the front springs. AC then added a rear underpan, keeping in mind that lateral stiffness is more important for beam axles rather than high torsional stiffness that is essential for more modern suspension. AC also made a wide section front crossmember for their engine. There's the fuel tank tucked safely behind the seat where it's unlikely to get damaged. I flock sprayed the boot, but I'm going to redo it with better quality materials. The spare wheel has its own little cubby hole and the number plate is backlit. I coach painted the spare wheel door. The boot lid still needs a final clear coat to finish. That's the AC patented splash and stone guard. It's designed to keep the car clean by preventing muddy water rebounding off the wings. Originally made from aluminium, I made new ones from stainless steel. One topic sure to cause fistfights in the audience is modifications. I like originality and preservation, but this has to be tempered by some common sense. I don't want to see my hard work rot away, so I've used a far better adhesive for the wood frame and have painted it to prevent furniture beetles from laying their eggs. Screws are stainless, as the acid in the wood can rust zinc plated screws even when sitting in dry storage. I see a lot of poorly looking trafficators on YouTube videos. The top tip for maintaining them is to keep the plunger clean and free from any oil or grease. Any oil on it will attract dirt and also get sticky when it heats up. I clean mine with a cotton bud soaked in either methylated spirits or an alcohol-based switch cleaner. It doesn't need cleaning often as long as oil is kept off it. The arm pivot does need oiling occasionally, maybe once a year, but only a couple of drops of light oil. The pivot can break if it never gets lubricated. I'll end this intro with a rapid-fire slideshow of the restoration so far. Thanks for watching.